What if the dish on the menu of every Italian restaurant in America, the one your family orders without thinking, the one wrapped up in red checkered tablecloths and grandmother mythology and 1,000 romantic movie scenes, was never Italian at all? What if the foods that built the entire global brand of Italian cuisine, the dishes that travel agencies use to sell trips to Tuscany, the recipes that food magazines call ancient traditions handed down through generations, were quietly invented in tenement kitchens in New York, in Italian-American grocery stores in San Francisco, in restaurants in New Orleans, by immigrants who missed home so badly they built a new version of it on a plate? Italy is one of the greatest culinary civilizations in human history. Nobody is arguing with that. But the version of Italian food that conquered the world, the one billions of people now think of as authentically Italian, has a different passport than you think. Hi, my name is David, and this is Food Origins, the show where we pull back the curtain on the foods you grew up eating and find out they came from somewhere you never expected. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe, because today we are going somewhere genuinely uncomfortable. Today, we are talking about 10 foods America stole from Italy and then pretended to invent. Or in some cases, 10 foods America invented entirely, slapped an Italian name on, and then sold back to the world as old country tradition. Fair warning, if you have an Italian grandmother, you might want to watch this one with the door closed. Food number 1, chicken Parmesan. Let's start with the heavyweight, the dish that has launched 1,000 first dates. The golden breadcrumb-crusted cutlet, blanketed under a thick layer of tomato sauce, smothered in molten mozzarella, served alongside a mountain of spaghetti in a restaurant where the lighting is just dim enough to feel romantic. Chicken Parmesan is, by most estimates, the single most ordered Italian dish in America. It is on every red sauce joint menu from Brooklyn to Boise. It is the dish that made an entire generation of Americans believe they understood Italian food. And it has never, not once, appeared on a traditional menu in Italy. Here is the real story. Chicken Parmesan was born in the Italian immigrant communities of the northeastern United States sometime in the early 20th century. It grew directly out of a dish that is genuinely, undeniably Italian: melanzane alla parmigiana, eggplant parmesan. A layered, slow-baked masterpiece from the southern regions of Campania and Sicily, where eggplant is fried, sauced, and blanketed under cheese until something almost miraculous happens inside the pan. That dish is ancient. That dish is real. That dish belongs to Italy. The chicken part does not. When Italian immigrants arrived in America in the late 1800s and early 1900s, eggplant was expensive, difficult to find, and deeply unfamiliar to their American neighbors. But chicken was cheap. Chicken was everywhere. Chicken was the ingredient that made economic sense in a new country that did not yet share the palate of the old one. So somewhere in a home kitchen in Brooklyn, or Boston, or Philadelphia, an Italian immigrant woman made a substitution that she probably did not think twice about. She swapped the eggplant for a pounded chicken cutlet, kept the sauce, kept the cheese, kept the love that went into the original, and changed culinary history without ever meaning to. Italy has no record of this dish. Ask for pollo alla parmigiana in Naples today, and the waiter will look at you with an expression that is equal parts confusion and concern. Chicken Parmesan is a love letter to a homeland, written in a language that homeland never spoke. And somehow, impossibly, it became more famous than the original. America took the form, swapped the protein, and quietly took the credit. Food number 2, pepperoni pizza. Stop for a moment and really think about this one. If you asked 100 Americans to name the most Italian food they could think of, at least half of them would say pizza. And of those, the majority would picture one specific thing: a round, saucy, cheese-covered disc absolutely loaded with little curled discs of spicy red meat. That image, the pepperoni pizza, might be the single most recognizable food icon in the entire Western world. It is on lunchboxes, Super Bowl commercials, and the speed dial of every university student who has ever existed. And pepperoni, the one ingredient that defines the whole picture, is entirely American. Let me say that again so it lands properly. Pepperoni is American. Pepperoni as a cured meat was developed by Italian-American butchers in New York City in the early 20th century. The word itself is a corruption of the Italian word pepperoni, which simply means large peppers. Not meat, not sausage, not the magnificent greasy disc you are currently thinking about. Peppers. Just peppers. In Italy, if you walk into a pizzeria and order a pizza ai pepperoni, you will receive a pizza topped with bell peppers. That is the entire order. The look on the face of an unsuspecting American tourist when that pizza arrives at the table is, by all accounts, one of the great unscripted comedic moments available to the modern traveler. The spiced, paprika-heavy, thinly sliced, cured sausage that Americans know and love was engineered specifically to appeal to American palates and to perform beautifully inside the unique, high-heat environment of American pizza ovens. And I do mean perform. Those iconic little curled cups that form at the edges, the ones that fill with their own rendered fat and get slightly charred and crisp at the rim. That specific texture, that precise behavior under heat, was developed entirely on American soil through trial and iteration, and the particular genius of immigrant butchers who understood both traditions and chose to invent something new from the overlap. The first documented appearance of pepperoni as a pizza topping was in New York City around 1919. Today, Americans consume approximately 251 million pounds of pepperoni every single year. Italy produces almost none of it. The most Italian thing on the entire menu was made in Manhattan, and nobody questioned it for 100 years. America stole the word pepperoni, redefined what it meant, put it on a pizza, and convinced the world it had always been there. Food number 3, garlic bread. Garlic bread is the thing that disappears from the table before the main course arrives. That warm, crusty, butter-soaked loaf, split down the middle and loaded with roasted garlic and parsley, sometimes stuffed with cheese, sometimes topped with a sprinkle of dried Italian seasoning that comes from a green plastic shaker. It shows up alongside every plate of pasta in every Italian-American restaurant in the country. And Italy has almost no idea what it is. What Italy does have is bruschetta, genuinely ancient, grilled or toasted bread rubbed with a raw garlic clove and drizzled with good olive oil, eaten as a simple snack in central Italy going back centuries. That is the ancestor. But the garlic bread that sits in a foil sleeve in American supermarket freezers, or arrives at the table wrapped in paper and glistening with butter and dried herbs, that is a specifically American creation. The divergence happened in the mid-20th century, when Italian-American restaurants began adapting bruschetta for American tastes. Olive oil became butter because butter was cheaper, more familiar, and more indulgent in the American mind. The raw garlic rub became garlic powder because it was easier to apply at scale. Fresh, dense Italian bread became the soft, pillowy Italian-American loaf that had itself evolved away from its origins. Layer by layer, substitution by substitution, something entirely new was built, and then handed back to the world as if it had always belonged to Italy. The frozen garlic bread industry in the United States alone is worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. In Italy, that product simply does not exist. Bruschetta and American garlic bread share a single garlic clove in their lineage, and almost nothing else. America took a centuries-old Italian ritual of bread, garlic, and oil, replaced every key ingredient, mass-produced the result, and sold it back to the world wearing an Italian costume. Food number 4, fettuccine alfredo. Fettuccine alfredo has a paper trail, which makes its story both easier and more interesting to tell. The dish does have a genuine Italian origin. In 1914, a Roman restaurateur named Alfredo Di Lelio created a rich, simple pasta in Rome for his pregnant wife, who had lost her appetite. He tossed butter, Parmesan, and pasta water together with care until the sauce became silky and extraordinary. He called it fettuccine al triplo burro, triple butter fettuccine. The dish existed. Alfredo's restaurant existed. But what happened next is what makes this a food origin story. In 1920, American silent film stars Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks ate at Alfredo's restaurant on their honeymoon, and they were so overwhelmed by the dish that they brought the recipe back to the United States and told everyone they knew. American food culture grabbed it and ran. Then, American food culture did what it always does. It rewrote it. The version that exploded across American Italian restaurants through the mid to late 20th century added heavy cream, added garlic, added chicken or shrimp, thickened the sauce until it became almost a gravy, and served it in portions that would make a Roman dizzy. In Rome today, Alfredo's original restaurant still exists and still serves the dish nothing but butter and Parmesan. Italian chefs describe the American cream-based version as unrecognizable. It is simultaneously the most authentic and the most transformed dish on this list. Italy gave America a recipe. America gave it back, barely resembling itself, with 3 times the ingredients, 4 times the calories, and an Italian name still firmly attached to the bowl. The original Alfredo never put cream in his pasta. He did not need to. America added the cream, and then started teaching Italian chefs how Italians supposedly made it. The audacity is genuinely impressive. Food number 5, spaghetti and meatballs. We have arrived at perhaps the most important entry on this list, the dish that might be the single most recognized image of Italian food in the entire Western world. 2 people sharing a plate of spaghetti and meatballs, a candle between them, a checkered tablecloth beneath them, an accordion playing somewhere off camera. It is the romantic shorthand for Italian dining that has appeared in 100 films, 1,000 advertisements, and on the menus of every Italian-American restaurant in existence. It is not Italian. Italy does have meatballs. Polpette are a traditional preparation found across various regions, but they are typically small, served alone as a second course, never placed on top of pasta, and never drowned in the kind of thick, sweet, heavy tomato sauce that defines the American version. Placing meatballs on top of a large bowl of spaghetti and covering the whole thing in red sauce is an American construction from beginning to end. The dish was developed by Italian immigrants in the northeastern United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, most likely in New York City. Here is the part that explains everything. In America, meat was cheaper and more abundant than it had ever been in southern Italy. Immigrants who had grown up eating small amounts of meat as a rare luxury suddenly had access to it in quantities that felt almost incomprehensible. The meatball got bigger, the portion got larger, the sauce got richer. The whole thing got piled onto pasta because pasta was filling, and pasta was cheap, and pasta meant home. When Italian tourists visit New York today and are served spaghetti and meatballs, the reaction is often the same. A long pause, a polite smile, and then the quiet, private thought that whatever this is, it is not what their mother made. But here is the thing. It is absolutely what someone's mother made. Just a mother from Brooklyn, not Bologna. America took a small Italian side dish, supersized it, glued it to a bowl of pasta, drowned it in red sauce, put it under a candle, and convinced the entire world that this is how Italians eat dinner. They do not. They never did. Food number 6, Caesar salad. Caesar salad is the salad that made people who hate salad like salad. That combination of crisp romaine, sharp Parmesan, garlicky creamy dressing, and aggressively crunchy croutons has been a fixture on restaurant menus across America for nearly a century. It is on every steakhouse menu, every wedding buffet, every sad desk lunch that is trying its best to feel sophisticated. And it sounds unmistakably, irrefutably Italian. Caesar, Roman emperor, ancient civilization, classic European refinement, passed down through generations of people who understood food at a level we can only aspire to. Except none of that is true, not a single word of it. Caesar salad was invented in Tijuana, Mexico in 1924 by an Italian immigrant named Cesar Cardini, who ran a restaurant just across the border from San Diego. The name is Italian. The man is Italian. The salad is not. The story goes that on the 4th of July weekend, the restaurant was absolutely slammed with American tourists crossing the border for a good time. The kitchen was running dangerously low on food, and Cardini had to improvise something fast from whatever was left on the shelves. He grabbed romaine, eggs, Parmesan, olive oil, lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce, and some croutons. He tossed it tableside as a piece of pure theater, a performance designed to make scarcity look like intention. and he accidentally created one of the most beloved salads in the history of food. One of the most iconic dishes in the world was born because a restaurant ran out of food on a holiday weekend in Mexico, made by an Italian-American whose entire family business was American. Cardini himself always insisted the original recipe contained no anchovies, a claim that has ignited more genuine arguments at dinner tables than probably any other food debate in American history. He knew what he had. He trademarked the dressing and moved his bottling operation to Los Angeles in 1948, turning a moment of kitchen panic into a commercial legacy. Caesar salad arrived in Italy only when American tourists carried their expectations across the Atlantic with them. Before that, it simply did not exist there. A salad named after a Roman emperor that Rome itself never tasted. America gave the salad an Italian-sounding name, an Italian-sounding origin, an Italian-sounding everything, and quietly forgot to mention that the entire thing was assembled on the wrong side of the border. Food number 7, Italian dressing. Here is one that almost nobody sees coming, and I mean that. I have told this one to people at dinner parties and watched them physically set down their forks. Italian dressing. The tangy, herb-flecked, aggressively zesty vinaigrette that has been drowning iceberg lettuce in American homes since roughly the middle of the 20th century is not Italian. It was not carried over in the luggage of an immigrant who missed the flavors of home. It was not inspired by some regional vinaigrette from the hillsides of Tuscany or the coastal kitchens of Liguria. It was invented by an American restaurant owner in the American Midwest and named Italian for one reason and one reason only: the herbs it contained. Oregano, basil, garlic sounded Italian to American ears in the 1940s. That is the entire origin story. A vibe, a suggestion, a collection of herbs that felt foreign enough to be romantic and familiar enough to be safe. The most widely credited origin points to a restaurant called The Wishbone in Kansas City, Missouri, around 1945. The owner developed a house dressing built on a vinegar and oil base and loaded it with those Italian-sounding herbs until it tasted like what Americans imagined Italian food tasted like. Which, of course, is a very different thing from what Italian food actually tastes like. He began bottling it for customers to take home. The product eventually became the Wishbone brand, which is still sitting on grocery store shelves in the salad dressing aisle today, completely unbothered, completely confident in its identity. Now here is the sentence that stops people cold. Italian people do not use Italian dressing. Read that again. Take your time. In Italy, salads are dressed simply. Olive oil, a splash of red wine vinegar, salt. That is the entire process. There are no packets, no bright orange bottles, no ingredient lists that require a second column. The very concept of a pre-mixed, herb-saturated, mass-produced liquid poured from a bottle over salad leaves would land somewhere between deeply confusing and genuinely offensive in most Italian households. And yet, in America, Italian dressing outsells almost every other dressing on the market, year after year after year. A product with no connection to Italy whatsoever, wearing Italy's name like a costume it borrowed and never returned. Sometimes, what sounds like home is just a story someone told you often enough that you stopped questioning it. America did not even pretend on this one. America just took the word Italian, slapped it on a bottle of herbs and vinegar, and an entire nation went along with it. Food number 8, the Italian beef sandwich. Most of the foods on this list were born in New York or California, the two coasts that tend to dominate American food history. This one belongs to Chicago, and Chicago will remind you of that fact loudly and repeatedly if you ever suggest otherwise. The Italian beef sandwich is a Chicago institution. Thinly shaved, seasoned beef, slow roasted in its own juices, piled high on a long Italian roll, and served either wet, meaning dipped completely into the cooking liquid, or dry, or somewhere in the middle, which Chicagoans call au jus. It is almost always topped with giardiniera, a spicy pickled vegetable relish. And the whole experience is aggressive, dripping, and unforgettable in the specific way that only genuinely regional American food can be. The Italian beef sandwich was created in Chicago in the 1930s, most likely by Italian immigrant families who were stretching small amounts of expensive beef as far as it could possibly go during the Great Depression. Slow roasting tougher, cheaper cuts and slicing them paper thin meant more sandwiches per pound. Soaking the meat and the bread in the cooking liquid meant nothing went to waste. Hardship and immigrant ingenuity built one of the great American sandwiches. There is no equivalent in Italy. The technique, the giardiniera topping, the specific style of bread, the ritual of ordering it wet or dry, all of it is native to Chicago and to the specific economic and cultural pressures that shaped that city in the early 20th century. Italy gave Chicago its people. Chicago gave the world this sandwich, and then put the word Italian right on the menu, where it has stayed for nearly 100 years. Walk into a beef stand in Naples and ask for an Italian beef. They will hand you a napkin and ask if you are feeling well. Food number 9, rainbow cookies. We are getting closer to the end, and I want to slow down for this one because it is smaller, sweeter, and more personal than anything else on this list. Rainbow cookies, also called Venetian cookies, or Neapolitan cookies, or Italian flag cookies, depending entirely on which bakery counter you are standing at. They feel like a direct connection to old-world Italian craftsmanship. 3 jewel-colored layers of almond cake, raspberry jam pressed between them, the whole thing sealed in a thin coat of chocolate and cut into neat little rectangles. They look like they were brought over in a suitcase from somewhere ancient and specific. They were made in New York. Rainbow cookies were developed by Italian-American bakers in New York City, most likely in the 1930s and 1940s, as a deliberate tribute to the Italian flag. The 3 colors, red, white, and green, are a direct expression of immigrant pride, a way of honoring a homeland from a distance, using the tools and ingredients available in an American kitchen. The almond paste base shows Italian influence, but the specific construction, the layering, the jam filling, the chocolate coating, and the neat rectangular presentation, that is an American bakery invention. You will not find rainbow cookies in Venice, Naples, or Rome. You will find them in every Italian-American bakery in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, sitting in the case beside the cannoli and the sfogliatelle, treated as if they have always been there, as if they are as old as the old country itself. And in a way, that is the most honest thing about them. They were never trying to be Italian. They were trying to remember Italy. The cookie that looks the most Italian on the entire pastry shelf was never Italian at all. It was an immigrant child's tribute to a flag a continent away, baked in an oven in Brooklyn. America did not steal this one, so much as Italian Americans built it and then forgot to mention to the rest of the world that Italy itself had never tasted it. Food number 10, the muffaletta. Let's end with one that almost nobody knows the truth about, and the truth is genuinely wonderful. The muffaletta. If you have ever bitten into one, you already know it is not a subtle sandwich. It does not whisper, it announces itself. A round, sesame-seeded Sicilian-style loaf is split open and loaded with layers of salami, ham, mortadella, provolone, and the ingredient that makes the whole thing sing, a briny, garlicky, aggressively seasoned olive salad that soaks into the bread and turns the whole structure into something that is somehow greater than the sum of its very impressive parts. The ingredients are Italian. The bread is Italian. The name comes from a Sicilian dialect word for a type of soft, round loaf. So it must be Italian, right? Wrong. The muffaletta was invented in New Orleans in 1906 by a Sicilian immigrant named Salvatore Lupo, the owner of Central Grocery on Decatur Street in the French Quarter, a building that I am pleased to report is still standing and still selling the exact same sandwich today. Salvatore watched the Sicilian dock workers and laborers who crowded into his store every day at lunch, struggling to juggle separate packages of bread, meat, cheese, and olive salad while standing up. So he put it all together. One sandwich, one hand, one devastating decision that would echo through culinary history. Here is the detail that most people miss entirely. The olive salad. The soul of the muffaletta, the ingredient without which the sandwich is just a slightly fancy sub, was a Louisiana creation, built from local ingredients and local palate preferences. It was never a traditional Sicilian condiment brought from the old country. It was invented right there on Decatur Street to satisfy a New Orleans hunger. Italy gave Louisiana the people. Louisiana gave the world the sandwich. The muffaletta has a Sicilian name, a Sicilian style of bread, and 100% American identity. Central Grocery has been proving that point every single day for over a century. So that is the list. 10 dishes. One enormous, beautiful, complicated truth. America did not invent its love of Italian food by accident. It built that love deliberately, dish by dish, in tenement kitchens in New York, in grocery store back rooms in New Orleans, in Chicago butcher shops, in Brooklyn bakeries, in a Tijuana restaurant on a slow holiday weekend, by people whose hands remembered Italy even when their pantries did not match it. And then the world ate the result, and the world called it Italian. And the credit, the marketing, the romance, the candlelight, the checkered tablecloth, all of it stayed pointed firmly at the country across the ocean, while the actual cooks who built the dishes faded quietly into the wallpaper of American history. Italy is, without question, one of the greatest culinary civilizations on Earth. Nothing on this list takes anything away from that. But the version of Italian food that built a global brand, the one most people picture when they hear the word Italian, was not made in Rome, or Naples, or Florence. It was made in Brooklyn, and Chicago, and New Orleans. And it deserves to be called what it actually is: American. Brilliantly, stubbornly, lovingly American. With an Italian accent. I'm David. This is Food Origins. If this changed the way you think about your next plate of pasta, or the way you order at your favorite red sauce restaurant, hit that like button and subscribe, because we have stories exactly like this one lined up for cuisines, cities, and countries that are going to completely rearrange the way you see your dinner. Tell me in the comments which one of these surprised you the most. I have a feeling spaghetti and meatballs is going to start the biggest fight. And honestly, good. The best food conversations always do.